My name is Jason Bush with Jamf Software. I'm an account executive. I work with education customers in the Midwest. I'm based here in Minneapolis. So if you're from out of town, thank you for coming to visit my hometown and welcome to the Twin Cities. I hope you're having a good time. The session today is titled 7,000 iPads in 7 months. How did they do it? And a local school district here in the Twin Cities, Lakeville, did just that, and they're here to share their experiences and knowledge. Did I say Lakeville? I'm so sorry.
We're right next door. Yeah.
Farmington Public Schools. Thank you, Brianna. We've got Brianna Buck and Dan Pickens will be presenting today. And then Tracy Benson, hiding in the background here, will answer the tough technical questions because she was involved in the process as well. So go ahead, guys, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for coming today. Like he said, we decided to roll out 7,000 iPads in 7 months, and we kind of did it right in the middle of the school year, too. So we're a little bit crazy, but it worked out great. So this is kind of our story. Like he mentioned, you can go back one slide.
Nope, you're done.
Oh, we're good, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so throughout the presentation today, we're going to talk briefly about our district vision, which is basically kind of what started all this, why we decided to go this route. We then went to staff iPads, got all of our staff set up with things, and then went to students. Pretty much right in the middle of the year, between September and December, we got all kids with iPads one-to-one. There's about 7,000 of them. And then also how we got the community involved, because when you do anything in public education, the community needs to support you, and you're going to need their support throughout the way as well. So a little bit about Farmington Public Schools. We have about 7,000 students. We have 8 schools, 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and then a high school with about 1,800 kids. About 30 miles south of the Twin Cities, about 400 teachers. When we did the rollout, we rolled out iPads to every certified staff in the district, which is mostly teachers, but there are some other assignments that are sprinkled in there, school counselors, things like that. So, like I mentioned about the strategic plan and our district vision, that's kind of what started all of this. What we wanted to do is we wanted to customize education for all kids and really dig deep into kind of differentiation. And you really can't do that as a teacher or as a district without a tool. So we went with the iPad. Obviously, we used Casper as our MDM, or else they probably wouldn't have invited us here, I guess. And we did something a little bit different than a lot of school districts do. We went with a personal Apple ID model. Rather than syncing them to the cart using Configurator or something, we had all of our kids 3rd grade through 12th grade actually either create an Apple ID or use an existing Apple ID. And that's it causes some differences in the way you manage things. But when we talked about customizing education and allowing the kids to put things on their iPads that spark them, things that they're interested about, we went with the personal Apple ID model for that. And then in grades K through 2, we went with the cart model. So those are plugged in. That is not fun to plug every device into a Mac. And so that's one of the other reasons. But we made it work for K2 because we felt like that was the best way to do it. So grades 3 through 12, they take their iPads home 24/7. K2, they stay in the building, but every kid is still assigned to one iPad. So they can still do projects that go throughout the year, throughout units. And that's kind of the reason that we went with those different models. So.
It's me.
Yes.
All right. So this is our staff iPads. How they got them was late spring 2012. And that was actually like really late spring. Some were the very last day of school. They created their Apple ID, kind of went through the setup. It was done on a kind of 3 to 4 to 1 model. It was kind of everybody just kind of said, all right, here you go. We're going to take you. We're going to get your 3 set up, end of the school year, and then you're going to go for the summer. See you later. Explore it. Use it on your own. You have the whole summer. They really didn't give them a whole bunch of, here's what you do. Here's how this works. Here's how this works. It was, you have the whole summer to do this. The first professional development that they got on that was at the end of the summer in August. It was the Tech Institute. It was optional if they wanted to come, and that was basically how the first part of it went out. So.
And one of the reasons that we decided to do it this way, well, A, we wanted teachers to get their iPads in the spring so that when they had all these crazy questions about how do I do this, how to do that, there was really nobody to ask except for their own kids. So they would go home and they would ask their kids, and they figured out a lot of the problems. They solved the problems themselves. And then also, we told them all the kids are going to be getting iPads here soon, probably next year. The plan wasn't totally done yet. But you can offer a lot of professional development, but really it's not real until every kid shows up in class with an iPad. So we didn't offer a ton of support at that point. We later on offered a lot of support once it became real for everybody.
If we could turn back time, these are kind of our positives, negatives, successes, challenges slides. The time of the handout, that was a positive, that there wasn't a whole lot of prep that had to go into either the tech side or the professional development side, that here it is, here's what you have. There was basic PD, but it wasn't, anything really super intense, and here's some resources that you can use. That was what the model that we did for that. Like I said, it was an all hands on deck. It was tech, it was teaching and learning. It was anybody that could kind of meet with groups of teachers in 3 or 4 and say, here's how you're going to get this set up. One of the issues we had was kind of the Apple ID. I just don't think we had as much knowledge about all the different pieces, like, do I use my Apple ID I already have for my iPhone? Do I set up a new school one? Like, all those questions that were coming, weren't really exactly sure what we needed to do with that. Obviously, we've gone through that and solved that now. But the other piece is our Destiny is our library management system, and that is how we check out the kids to them, scan them, and then they go in there. We didn't do that with the teacher ones at all, so it was here it is, here you go, and we really didn't have a huge record of what it is. So now we're going back in that, and the media specialists are checking them into them now, like they're checked out a library book to them. Now they have an iPad checked out to them too.
So we hand out all the iPads to the staff in the spring, and then we tell the staff, all right, we're going to have a bunch of iPads as student iPads that you can apply to get to be part of an early adopter. Now, we were careful not to call it a pilot, because a pilot, basically means you're testing it out to see if it works. Now, we believe this is the best thing for our kids. So we said, we're going all the way. So these aren't pilot teachers, these are early adopter teachers. So apply, and then if you write an application and we like it, and you're going to do some really cool customizing stuff, then we'll get you a classroom set. Now, we weren't exactly sure how many teachers were going to apply. We ended up having 90 teachers apply, which is about 1,800 kids throughout the district. We're part of this early adopter phase. The early adopter phase is a little bit different than our one-to-one plan. These were all cart-based, so these were classroom sets, which if anybody works with the differences, it's a way different system. If multiple kids are using the same iPad throughout the day, you can't be doing stuff throughout units and saving it in folders unless you can, lock the folders. It's a totally different system. So that caused a challenge for us. So this is kind of to test some of our tech stuff, our MDM stuff, to see how it works with all the iPads. And it turned out to be about a quarter of our kids during this early adopter phase did have access to an iPad. So this went from September to December about, which is when, that's when the magic happened. So let's see. So this was part of the early adopter phase. One really great thing I mentioned, we had so many people apply. Just about everybody that applied was able to get the iPad. So we knew our teachers and our kids were, kind of ready to do this. Nobody really knew exactly what it was going to be like, but we were pretty much ready. Schoology is our learning management system in Farmington. We use this kind of as a peer-to-peer learning network as well. So we have groups set up where teachers, we call it a staff technology help forum, and staff can ask questions, kind of like a listserv. They ask questions on there, and it really took on a mind of its own, where other teachers were answering questions, which took a little bit of the heat off of the digital learning team and the tech team as far as answering a lot of the questions, the basic, how do I turn my iPad off? And that question got asked a lot. It really is only 2 buttons, so I'll try them both. But still, that question gets asked, and then other teachers were able to answer it. So that went really, really well, having some sort of a support there. Casper was another thing that we weren't exactly sure how everything was going to work together. So, I mean, Tracy Benson that Jason mentioned, she was kind of our mastermind behind all the Casper stuff, so she was able to test a lot of that stuff out and see how it works. We're still learning, obviously. That's why we're here. And then also the challenge, like I mentioned, the cart-based versus the one-to-one, totally different system. So it didn't really prepare us for one-to-one, but at least allowed us to have kids use the devices a little bit. So and then the setup time that it takes to do that that's a lot of time to sync 1,800 iPads to individual computers. Well, although now you can have devices with Apple. Is it configured 1.4 that allows you to sync to multiple computers, or you can plug it into any MacBook or something like that. Tracy does all that. She knows that. So, but that'll make it a little bit easier. But I like the one-to-one better for sure. So what else? Rollout Nights.
That's me.
This is fun.
Yeah. So our Rollout Nights, the first ones we started were December 2012. Those were, we started with the high school. We had 3 nights, 4 locations at the high school. And they had to turn in all the early adopter ones, and then we got ready to kind of roll out all of the rest of them. It was staffed by volunteer staff and students. So I begged for every staff in the district that could come, and if you saw my emails, you would know that they were literally begging, because I needed about at least 80 volunteers per night. We had 4 locations. I needed a minimum of 20 people in every place to kind of get that all done, and I'll show you my pretty drawing of my layout and everything. It was like an assembly line, kind of different stations. The people walked in one door, they went through all these different places, and then they walked out. And the way that we did it, we just had a bunch of posters set up. So screenshots, and then with directions just on them, and then people there to help and support them if they needed. So these were the different stations that we had. So the first one was insurance. Last year we worked with an insurance company. This year we are doing self-insurance. They have to pay $28 per device, max of $56 per family. And if you are on free and reduced lunch, we cover your insurance. So all that money right now goes into just kind of a budget, insurance budget, and that's where we buy and we use that to repair anything that we have any damage that comes with that.
The key to that is investing in a strong, nice case that covers the corners.
Yeah. We do use Griffin survivor cases. The next piece was if you were setting up an Apple ID. If we were setting up Apple IDs on the night of, which we learned was better than if they set it up at apple.com before they got there, is if they set one up while they came to the Rollout Nights, we had them set up an iCloud account. We did that because that was the way that we could guarantee that it was set up. You didn't have to verify it via email, and the email went right on there in case somewhere through the steps you forgot your password, because that happens. And then if you already had one, we just sent you to the next table to kind of go on. Like I said, those are checked out in our library system. So when they came in, when they got delivered to us, the asset sticker was on the back of it, and then we just tied that to the serial number, loaded that into our library system. So we looked up their name, scanned them, they went through. So basically, we gave them the iPad set up out of the box, turned it on. It's at iOS 6 because this was last year. And
so
then
some
they
of them
had
were still on 5, though.
Yeah, some of them, depending on where they were housed, yeah. Then they just went through the setup screens on their own. They just literally ran through them and said, yes, enable location services, turn on, iCloud, all that kind of stuff. Then they went to Casper Enroll, and screenshots again for that had them log in with their AD credentials, so that put them in the correct smart group. Since a lot of them did create Apple IDs the night of, we wanted to make sure that their Apple ID worked. And so we had them, after they enrolled in Casper, we had 2 apps scoped to them in self-service, and we had them download a free and a paid app just to make sure that their app download works if they had to go through the security questions and all that kind of stuff. And then they got a case and a charger. Visual learners like me, this is my pretty drawing. So this kind of runs you through. Way over by Dan is where it says in their insurance payment, they pick up their iPad, and then I need to create an Apple ID, or I go through the posters there at the top. Casper Enroll. In the purple, we had our tech department there in case they could not remember their AD login, so that could be reset. since that's what they use to log into Casper. They downloaded an app, and they went their case and charger, and then we shoved them out the door. So that was how our 4 rooms were set up. We are fortunate that we had rooms this size that were in the high school, and we actually did all of our rollout nights at the high school because the setup is so awesome. This is me too, I think.
Yep.
I heart rollout nights. We thought about getting me a shirt. So, middle school and elementary. So we did the high school in December, right before winter break. Also purposeful that we did it before that. Same reason that we did it for the staff is go home, you have it for a week and a half while you're on winter break, and you guys can kind of figure out what you're going to do and download what you want to do and play with it and that kind of a thing.
And the parents didn't need to buy a Christmas gift that year because they got an iPad, so that
they
worked
were all
out
excited
well.
about that, yeah.
Community support, you know.
Yeah. So middle school and elementary, which was, elementary was 4th, 5th, our middle schools are 6th, 8th. We did those in February. Again, we did it, I think, like President's Weekend or something like that. So we had an extra day for them to kind of play. They came to the high school. We got them all squared away. They ran through the very same process. The parents and the students have to come. We made the high school parents and students come as well. There was a few that were like, oh, I'm 18 and I can do this and I can do whatever. So, you know, little exceptions for things like that, but we made them all come. This is some of our high school students that were putting on all the cases for everybody. So, because that would have been a nightmare having them try to put on those cases themselves. So, what we learned from our rollout nights.
That's a flex capacitor, by the way.
Yeah, we were thinking back to the future. So it was like, yes, if we could go back and figure this out, yeah. The format and the layout, that was a positive. That was a good thing. It seemed to work really well. If there wasn't a huge line, obviously, like we would run these from 4 to 7 at night, and you'd have everybody show up at 3:30, and I'm like, I can't open the doors because my volunteers are still teaching till 3:45, so they're not getting here till 4 o'clock, so enjoy standing in line. But once they did get in through all that, it probably took them an average 20 minutes if there wasn't any major issues, which there was always major issues. Very fortunate that I was able to get all the volunteers that I did. I tapped into, you know, NHS, to student council, to every group that needed any kind of volunteer hours at the middle school and the high school. That we did the high school first. There's, you know, a little more anxiety when you do the middle school and the elementary, and the parents are a little more close. And so I think it was positive that we were able to do the high school and then have those guys have already gone through the process, and then they were very willing to come help for the middle school and the elementary school, and that was kind of cool to see the connection between everybody. This is actually our negative. We did to go through and do our Apple whitelist so we could create a whole bunch of Apple IDs that night. It didn't work. So they were like, well, we think that it worked. So we had an issue on one of our first high school nights when we were supposed to be able to create all of these Apple IDs, and I don't know if it was our fault or if it's Apple's fault, but something happened and it didn't work, so we weren't whitelisted. So we frantically were calling Apple in the middle of this, like, it's not working. But we got that squared away. Network bandwidth, that's always an issue when you have so many in there. Our Casper server actually went down during all of this as well as we were trying to download apps. So we did put an extra access point in each one of those rooms, and they're separated like on either ends of the high school, and so I mean there was more than enough network bandwidth. It was just some of the other things we came up with that. So, and then the Apple ID. If they created one beforehand, which is what we kind of recommended when we first did the first few nights of the high school rollout, then they had to go verify, and then they don't know their password to their Google account and all this other kind of jazz. So that's what we had them do in iCloud. If they were under 13, we called it a family Apple ID, and so we kind of left it open to them as saying, you guys can create it, you can be in charge of it, you can decide if you want your kid to have the password to the Apple ID or not. If you don't, that's completely your decision. You are the parent, and this device is going home, and you're kind of in charge of whatever it is. Some of the parents said, great, yeah, sure, we'll give the kid the password. And other one's like, nope, I'm going to keep that to myself. So we said whenever you feel that they're ready for that. That's kind of how we dealt with that piece of it. Anything you want to say on this one?
Nope.
All right.
So staff has the iPads, early adopters go through, and then all of a sudden we start rolling out one-to-one. Now every kid grades 4 through 12 has an iPad they're taking home every day. So we got to take care of the little ones, the K3, which now actually our 3rd graders are starting to take them home. We've kind of rolled into a one-to-one personal ID model with them too this year. Just because we were getting bored, we didn't have any rollouts, so we figured let's do some 3rd graders too.
Yeah, because that's all we do. All we do is rollout nights.
So then we're going to take care of the little ones here. So these are all cart synced. Like we talked about. I'm using Apple Configurator, but they are still one-to-one, so each kid has one. And we have these, we're a QComp district, and I don't expect a lot of people to know much about that, but basically we have some funding to have some positions for building iPad support, and they call themselves BIPs. And we won't go into that, but building iPad support. And so they're actually teachers that just get a little stipend to help out with this. So they played a huge role in syncing, because you know the time it takes to sync, and it's not intensive time. It's plugging it in and then waiting and waiting and waiting, but somebody needs to be there for it. So the BIPs did help out a lot when we were syncing them, and we had a district Apple ID on each one of them, and we loaded the apps using Apple Configurator, doing that. And then we actually did a layered model, so that we had them log into a new Apple ID, which was also a school one, and they loaded free apps. The teacher was able to load free apps for their classroom, knowing that when we went back to sync, those would go away, but we didn't plan on syncing more than once a year, and maybe not even that. But we are going to have to sync here in a little bit to get them up onto 7. So. That's kind of how we worked those. So our Casper enrollment was over the air. This is kind of, Tracy's knows a lot more about this, so if you have questions about this at the end, you can ask. We use their AD credentials, and each kid will log in to Casper and enroll their own device using their AD credentials, and they're all in smart groups based on grad gear. So sometimes you get a kid that doesn't get the apps, and then the first thing that is checked always is, do they have a grad year in AD? And if they don't, then they didn't get put into the correct smart group to be able to get the apps, or they get the Wi-Fi or whatever we pushed out that way. That's kind of how our Casper works. A couple of the screenshots that we used to have them self-enroll during those rollout nights. Exciting. So kind of, as you can guess, we need a strong tech team and tech department to support all this, because we are, well, I guess, most districts can't consider themselves Windows districts or Mac districts anymore, but for all intents and purposes, before iPads, we were a Windows district, and we're slowly, being able to integrate both things, and that's always fun. So we have certified staff. Tracy is I think Apple certified, Casper certified, and Windows certified, that's kind of nice. So she does a lot of that kind of stuff, and then we have a team. I don't know how many. Is there 14 district-wide, something like that? Yeah, around that number, give or take 20.
You should know that Dan and I are not part of the tech department. We are part of teaching and learning, which is why there's only 3 of us for that part.
And then we have tech staff, Tracy being one of them. Kristen is in the audience here too. She also works with a lot of the MacBooks. So we have tech people that specifically, like, this is my forte. I'm going to work a lot on MacBooks and iPads, and we know where to go if we have questions, which I'm sure they like. And then they manage our Casper server as well.
Our iPads we leave fairly open. So just so that you guys know, it's kind of like we're teaching you digital citizenship. We do not put very many restrictions on their iPad unless they earn it. If they earn their restrictions, that's kind of what we say. There's a reason that you don't have this anymore, because this is what happened. So the restrictions that we put on there are basically when they enroll in Casper, they get their ratings, for their iTunes and different TV, G, PG things that they can't download that way. We have the managed apps. We give them 4 or 5. We give 5, and now we're kind of going back to 4. Paid apps, and those are the ones that are managed, and that's how they get those ones from self-service.
All of our apps are now managed too, by the way. They originally started out to be some were managed, some were unmanaged. Am I right? All apps are managed now? Yeah, so.
They are now.
Just saying. Yeah.
See, we're good. We got Tracy.
There you go.
Yeah. Our app deployment model is I told you when they enrolled in Casper and we had them download 2 apps, a paid and a free one. That was all that was in self-service, and as the time went on, we eventually put more into self-service, but we couldn't have them all coming to school the next day and wanting to download GarageBand because that wouldn't work on the network. So a lot of the times we would put those out there on Friday and say, all right, hey, GarageBand is out there on Friday. Principals send an email out, let them know that it's in self-service, and they could go and download that at their own time. We are fortunate that most everywhere has Wi-Fi, either in town or else most of our families have that, so that didn't seem to be a huge issue. We said that, rolled out the absence stages. This is an example of some of our web clips. We use those pretty frequently. We didn't obviously want them to plug in their iPad to iTunes on any computer to try and get their music because that would wipe out the rest of the stuff that we all did. So there's a little video of Dan up there kind of telling them how to get their music. There's a Farmington web page. Obviously, they're not going to read the huge, big, long loan agreement. So the little top 10 up there is kind of the top 10 things that they need to know. So it's a little Google presentation with, pictures and everything that says, hey, your screen breaks, this is what you do. Hey, this happens, or make sure you remember that. So we use web clips for a lot of that kind of stuff. Our app help one is up there as well. And so that one kind of lists what apps you have. If you need a code for something to get in, something from the media center or something like that. So we put a lot of web clips up there as well. We did not block any apps at the beginning. We have come up with 2. The first one we blocked was Snapchat, and Casper helped us do that. The only reason is we tried to think really, really hard of an educational purpose for that, and we could not come up with one. So that is why we blocked Snapchat. We sent that out to families, and we also sent that out via Schoology and said you need to delete Snapchat. If you don't, you will lose the functionality of your iPad. So they lost their camera, their Safari, all that kind of stuff.
I think I was trending on Twitter that day at our school because I blocked Snapchat.
Yeah.
They didn't like me.
The other one that we blocked earlier this year is social network site, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called Kick. Kind of a separate story, but basically it's marketed as a kid-friendly social networking site, and it isn't. So,
and it isn't.
So we blocked that one. So.
Those are the only 2 that we blocked. We've had requests from teachers, will you block Clash of Clans? No, because we don't want to get into the app blocking business because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's out there that is going to be the newest next thing all the time. So we haven't blocked that.
And I want to check my calendar in the school day, too.
Yes, so. And he wants to do that, and his is enrolled, so he likes to check all that out.
I mean, this is really, when we look at it, we say, okay, can there be a possible educational value to these certain things? Because we talked about customizing education. We want to find student spark. If students are into something, we want them to be able to, explore a little bit more within reason, because these kids do take the iPads home. So we look at doing some firewall stuff. Like, for example, Instagram doesn't refresh during the school day, so we blocked it from refreshing so that they can't do anything on it. But when they're at home, they can still have Instagram and they can still do that kind of thing, because these iPads became, not only just for the kids at school, but at home, that they look up things that they're interested in cooking. They should be able to get a cooking app if they want to. That's kind of our philosophy behind it. So.
These are some screenshots of just what we do for, movies, G, TV, G, apps 12+, allow all apps. There's different ones for the elementary versus the secondary. So that's basically all we kind of put on there. We don't restrict a whole lot. So. Dan kind of alluded to our building iPad support. Those are the BIPs, the stipend positions. So QComp in Minnesota is the alternative teacher performance pay. It is a stipend position. They kind of get money for 2 people, and if they decide they want to have 5 people, then obviously that money piece goes down, but that's a building level decision. We have no choice on who some of those people are, but yet get to work with them. So it's a 1-year position to assist with building PD and tech support. So we have a Schoology group that we put all of our resources in. So if we have a Google Doc or we have a Google presentation that we put in, we'll give them all that information. Here's what happens when you have a damaged or defective iPad. Here's what you go through. Here's a form you fill out. Here's who you email to say that you have one ready to go back, to repair. Like all that, we have all that stuff in there, and those are the building people that all the teachers are told to go to. In our secondary buildings, we do have a tech that's on site. In our elementary buildings, we have somebody that's assigned from Central Tech to go there, but they're not necessarily there every day. So it's nice to have somebody in the buildings to do that. They also run some different little PD things, or they might be in charge of doing some of their staff development days, some of that kind of thing. So first line of support, and then the Schoology groups. I talked about that.
So, you know, we mentioned the stuff that we do on Schoology, that just creating that culture of teachers helping other teachers, so that they're not all always coming to us. And it's been a long road. You know, we're still working on it. We still have people, when they have problems, they skip over the first couple steps that they're supposed to take, and they call Tracy or they call somebody else. So we just, you know, friendly reminders to, we have, you know, systems in place, because, I mean, the questions are all over the place, and a lot of times they can be answered before they get to us or the tech team. So we really tried to build that culture. And the last thing is how we got community engagement, which is the next slide. Basically getting our community on board with everything and making sure that they have a place to ask questions when they have questions. And you know these kids are going to go home. Some kids are going to go home and they're going to be on the iPad all the time, and they're going to stay up all hours of the night until the mom or dad just basically says, I've had enough, so what can I do? We want them to be able to ask questions if they have questions. So we offered some parent sessions after they got the iPads, because we knew if we did it before, it wouldn't be real to them. So we waited until after, until they're having problems, and said, okay, how can we respond to what you need? Offered some parent sessions. We have a one-stop shop that we, basically all of our iPad stuff goes on. This is on the website that we built, and it's continually changing. And we also have a forum on there where they can ask questions or share a success story, which is pretty cool. And then also community education has really jumped on board and offered some iPad classes. Just last week, we had a speaker come in about raising digital citizens and offered it to parents for free. So that's been a huge part of it too. But our community really is on board with what we're doing, and that's going to help it be successful. So really, I mean, that's our story, what we did, and kind of a little bit about why we did it. Hopefully there are some questions, if you guys have any questions about the stuff that we did. Yeah, in the back. She asked if the kids take them over when it's summer. That's been a conversation that goes back and forth a lot. Last summer, they did not. We had them turn them in, but we did not have them wipe them or anything. Basically, they just got to the appropriate charge level. We turned them off. We put them in a plastic baggie with a cord and their case. And then we put it in boxes according to, you know, alphabetical. And then at the beginning of the year, it was just find it and give it to them, and then make sure that they did their insurance payment again. And then, but for this summer, we had talked about maybe sending them home. But the whole activation lock thing is really, we got
really fun when you have personal app ID model,
yeah, the personal
supervised.
ID model, not supervised ones with the activation lock is interesting right now. So we got to have some more conversations. But we'd like to have them take them home, yes, but not yet. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we need to come over there. I'm from River Falls, Wisconsin. But anyway, so a couple things. First of all, budget-wise, we have major restrictions because we're in Scott Water. But that's a whole other issue. So we don't have any of the extra money to come through. So we have a tech hub, like a high school tech team that's doing some support. You have, first question is, do you have student support, or any students doing anything with the iPads for tech support? And then the other, like seniors in high school, the other question has to do with not chasing apps, but do you have any trouble with, you mentioned that another new app comes along, What do you do when the teacher says, I can't, this app is like driving me crazy, Clash Clans, of course. It's funny, from the 2 week command to the 2 week. Okay, and then it's like, now this next app. You do staff development for the teachers on here's how to red light, green light, orange light, the iPads, or what do you do for the development?
Yeah.
Go to the first question.
Yeah. No. Good. Couple of good questions there. First question was.
I don't know. I forgot.
Building tech.
Building tech.
Funding story, and things like that, and tech team. So we played with the idea of doing a Geek Squad at the high school, and where we had them come in and we had them apply, and we got enough kids on board, but really with all the other stuff going on, we didn't have time to organize it. So right now we don't have anything formally there other than the Schoology. We have a student help forum group just like we have a staff help forum group. And really it was awesome because a kid would ask a question and it would be answered by 5 other kids within 30 seconds. And that helps a ton from having them come down to the media center and things like that. And the second question.
Oh, Tracy can talk about
I'll talk about the app locking a little bit. We did have a big issue last year in our middle schools with Clash of Clans. And so what we decided to do is work with each individual schools because we're trying to let them have some control over their students. And so we did a tiered approach through Casper. And if you guys don't use smart groups, you should. So what we did is if the teacher said this kid is really causing a lot of trouble, then we put in their Casper record a flag called gamer. And then we had a smart group that said if they're flagged as gamer and they have Clash of Clans, so we told them you cannot play this, you need to remove it. So if they reinstall it again, then they got put into another smart group that said you had no camera, no Safari, no internet, and then there was a little web clip that would come on their screen that said game over, which the teachers thought was fun. And then they were forced to go to the office. A lot of it we made it so it was automated, where if they removed it, some of like Snapchat, they could remove it on their own. Or we get more restricted, where we restricted all their apps to like a 4 and plus, so all their apps got removed. So we kind of worked with buildings on that to see whatever they wanted to do, and then went through this department too to see what was acceptable.
Again, if you earn it, that's what's going to happen. We got things in place if you earn those restrictions.
It's been a lot of conversations with principals and really pushing them to figure out what their staff needs and try to work with them on helping these kids learn digital citizenship, what's appropriate, what's not, and it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, you know. So, other questions? Wow. Yes? How do we set up our Wi-Fi?
For rollout or in general? Oh, okay. So what we did for that is even before the initial iPads were sent out, we obviously had to upgrade our infrastructure. We had it where there's Wi-Fi everywhere in our whole district, but not for this kind of saturation. So the summer before we got all the iPads, we basically have an access point per classroom. So for rollout nights and all that, we just had a free or open Wi-Fi just called Enroll. So as they set up their iPad from factory, they would just get onto that Enroll network. And then once they enrolled in Casper, then we call it a 192 iPad, the secured Wi-Fi would come down through Casper once their grad year was in, once they enrolled.
Yes?
Insurance. At first you went with the company, now you say you do self-insurance. Does that cover your damage throughout the year?
All right, so last year we went with an insurance company. This year we are self-insuring. I'm sorry, I can't focus, the lights. All right, what's covered? Okay. So what's covered is basically their iPad. It doesn't cover any of the peripherals. It doesn't cover their charger. It doesn't cover their case. It's just the iPad piece of it is all that is covered. And we have had some charger issues.
Yeah, it's covered for 1 year. It's everything but intentional damage. So if we can prove that it is intentional damage, then that doesn't cover it. But if it is lost, stolen, then that is covered under the insurance too. And we do our best to track it down, and we thankfully didn't have a huge issue with it. It's one of the reasons we went to self-insured this year is because we invested in a strong case. We worked with finding lost iPads, and our percentage was very, very small of ones compared to what we looked at from other districts. So that's why we went to self-insured.
Well, one issue too, last year when we were not self-insured is that they only would cover it if it was like a drop or accidental. So then what I found is kids were afraid to say they dropped it. And so they would just turn it in and say, well, it just broke. Well, the insurance company would send it back then and not cover it. So I'd have to kind of go back and track the kid down and say, well, really it's okay to tell us that you dropped it. And so it was just too much rigmarole to go back and forth when they really did in fact drop it and were afraid to say.
Yeah. Yep.
We actually offer accidental damage coverage as an additional service in private schools. But the question with respect to the cases, you've taken all that in-house. Are you passing those costs directly back on to the parents, or are you pulling it out of general
So the first question is basically how we're financing a lot of this stuff. We gave every kid a case, and we bought those as a district. Those were purchased. The iPads themselves are leased over 3 years, and we did not take out an operating levy or any bonds for the school district. We actually just moved. Our financial director is unbelievable what he can do. We kind of moved some things around. We have some money from the curriculum budget because we're going to be doing some more digital curriculum stuff. So basically we did it on our current operating budget over 3 years because they're leased. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they are leased through Apple. Yep. And then for repairs, we did last year, so we had that insurance company, but for anything that was like if the staff were not covered, so if a staff dropped an iPad or something, we would just get it repaired through Apple. And this year we are using an outside vendor, but we still have the warranty. The ones that are under warranty through Apple, we still go through Apple.
I think we use a company called Unique.
And we did not do purchase additional warranty. Most districts didn't suggest that just because of the extra money. So we don't have the extra Apple warranty.
Orange shirt? Oh, either one. We do not use Apple TVs. We're currently looking at some mirroring possibilities, but we haven't landed on one yet. We had 2s originally for our early adopters, so that's 1,800, and then the rest of them are minis. So we kind of have a mix in the district, and that's just been kind of the way it's going to be. So, and yeah.
Textbooks. Do you purchase your textbooks and put them on the iPad?
About textbooks, we are getting better at that. And that we would like to move to a lot of that. Along with these iPads, we also, just this last year, we purchased 200 MacBooks, and we're going to be working with iAuthor and creating our own digital textbooks. But when a PDF book is available, we allow the teacher to use that, obviously, but we don't we don't really purchase textbooks anymore, kind of, is one way to put it.
They're not really there.
Yes. I'm sorry? Supervisory mode? Just the K3 ones, just those ones that are synced to the cart. So hopefully we can supervise over the air pretty soon. That would be nice.
We just didn't have the people really. I mean, we don't have any elementary, so I was one of the elementary people. And like they said, we were all Windows district, so we just don't have the staff to go around and supervise and sync everything. I mean, my theory is you use configurator as little as possible, but it would take 2 hours to sync 30 of them, so times 7,000, it's actually cheaper to give out the apps to the kids than to pay someone to do that.
How are you handling iOS 7?
Very carefully.
Yeah.
Well, I cried the first day that I heard about it, but then I got over it pretty quick. I don't know, we're working, right now we pulled all the people that work with iPads together and we said, all right, here's the deal, here's this new thing, and we need to combat it. We need to, get rid of that Apple ID off that device every time the kids come in and turn their iPad in for any reason. So we, put a bunch of documentation together that they have to follow the steps. And obviously we're going to have kids that don't remember their password or have staff members that forget to do that. And we have a little checklist: do this, then this, then this, and it's okay. I mean, we've had a couple that have had to call the education Apple's support line, and they've worked with them to be able to work something out. But it's difficult right now, which is why I would like over-the-air supervisory mode, because then that'll take care of it.
One thing that we've read about over-the-air supervisory mode is, though, it's going to wipe the iPad.
Yes. So that's so basically you're going to need to start from the beginning to have them enroll into it. So we've already started those conversations about having the student back everything up, figuring something out, and then, which maybe it'll happen at the end of this year, we'll have them wipe their iPad. Next year they get a new one or something like that. But yeah, it's job security. So, so that's good. Yes?
What about, are they able to update the system, like say iOS
Yeah, when 7 came out, it pretty much took our system down because everybody did it right away. So we quickly, tech staff quickly blocked them from doing it during at school. So they can go home and they're all on personal Apple ID model, so they can update basically when they want.
Even with a recommendation of not to update it yet, but they do anyways. So yeah, we sent out an email to the principal saying, here's the video, here's what you need to know, send this out to your parents, have them update. Minnesota doesn't have school Thursday, Friday, so we're like, have them update over then if they haven't done it already. And we got an email back from one of our high school assistant principals. He's like, okay, I'll check in with the 7 that haven't updated to iOS 7 already. So yeah, it is what it is. And I mean, the model that you have, you can't really stop them from updating, because it drives me crazy when there's a 1 sitting there on my iPad. How can I tell somebody else that they can't do that, you know?
And then along those lines too, the app updates, they do take up a lot of space. So Tracy and Nate are working to do something with a caching server. I don't know much about it. It's above my head. But do you want to talk a little bit about the caching server at all? Do you know how that works? Or I think
yeah, we're just working
just with
on the
Apple's
beginning part of
caching
that.
server. We're just looking into it and trying to test it with Mavericks and all
so.
that.
The app updates are coming from those servers, and they're not taking down our Wi-Fi stuff. So yes. Hopefully, I mean, I know that a lot of the Minnesota testing companies are working to find a way to be able to. As of now, they haven't moved there. So, I mean, if it's available and we can, and they're going to allow it, then yes,
Yeah,
for
we'll
sure. But as of now, they don't allow it. I mean, a lot of our teachers do their, summative assessments on there, but obviously, some.
And then the children were allowed to manually update to iOS 7. Well, that takes it out of supervisor. So now that's why we're praying, like you're saying, for over-the-air supervisory push, because otherwise we're going to go to touch all 2,000 of these iPads before January.
Maybe
See?
for Christmas.
That's all that stuff we don't want to do, so we're just kind of sitting and waiting, trying to figure out what's going to be the best.
And we're just a product of what other people are going to come up with and what the testing companies are going to allow. So right now we just, we do what we can.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You send a device out for repair. Do you give the student a replacement or a loaner?
He asked about sending the device out for repair, and do we give them a replacement or a loaner? We make it pretty easy on the kids, and I'm thinking about making it a little bit harder, so then they think a little bit more before they, drop it under the bus or something. But we just give it to them. We give them a new one, basically right away. We set it up, and we, now with activation lock, we disassociate their iCloud address with their old one, have them restore from an iCloud backup on the new device, all right there in the media center. The whole process is, an hour or so, and then they're going a little bit.
They're at the secondary level. They can't get a new one. They can't just walk into the media center and say, I broke it.
There's a process.
Yeah, they have to go to the principal or assistant principal. They have to kind of get the whole story and figure out if they need to talk to other students or do whatever, and they have to give the approval for them to get a new one.
Yeah. Yes.
Are they allowed, the students or the teachers, to participate in email at all? So do you have an exchange environment? Exchange active scenes, or do you do that stuff?
Do you want to take that?
Casper, as far as remote lighting, things like that?
The question is about email and exchange and all that kind of stuff for students and staff. Yes, students and staff have email. The staff have both a Google account and an Exchange account, and that's just set up on their device. The students have Gmail accounts through the district, and then that is restricted to sending, is it just internal? I think we have
No,
just...
they can get emails from Apple, from that farmington.k12, and at isd192.org.
So they can't get it from, outside, so we're trying to keep it a little bit safe for the kids, but then they can set that up on their device, yes.
So if you have to do a remote wipe, do you do the remote wipe through Casper or through Exchange?
We do it through Casper. He asked, the question was about remote wipe, we do it through Casper.
Yes.
Question about when they do paid apps, are you guys just doing the straight up BPP program, uploading the spreadsheet to Casper and pushing it out to them? Or are you letting, like I know, you let our teachers, they have their own, or at least
The questions about purchases and VPP, we do straight up VPP purchasing, and we make it available through self-service. Part of the problem is if you let them just use a credit card, they don't get the volume discount. You know, we don't, if a school, we have district-wide, you know, the standards. We have 4 or 5 paid apps and then like 20 free apps that we put in self-service so people can see what's available. If, say, one department decides they want 20 copies of numbers, then we buy it for them and then send them the codes because we don't want to have to just scope those 20 through Casper. So we kind of had to draw a line in the sand and say we're not going to do absolutely everything everyone wants, but we'll still make the volume purchasing available to you. So we've done kind of a hybrid. And then just give them the redemption codes for like the 20 that want that app.
All right, if there are any other questions, feel free to come up and talk with us. We'll be here for a little bit. We want to get you guys to lunch. I think Jason's got a little closing something.
A couple
Thanks
of
for
quick
coming, guys.
announcements about this evening. There is a Jamf Nation party at Aria, which is about 5-6 blocks away from here, other side of Washington Avenue. Starts at 6 p.m. Remember, you will need your Jamf Nation badge to get in the door. We've got some appetizers there, some beverages. Something about lunch today as well. During the lunch hour in the other theater where the keynote was yesterday morning, there's Mario Kart going on with Wii, so if you want to go play some video games during lunch, head over there. There's no food allowed in the theater, but after you eat or before you eat, you can go and have some fun. And I want to get a round of applause for these guys. Thank you so much for coming down.